Alright, I guess at least in part this is a Professoranton response video. That's where it looks like it's heading. So he has this concept. So I'll go to two different spots in here because they're really annoying. But anyway, he's doing a response video to TJ, and he's sort of asking these questions like, why isn't I'm pleading for the same thing, some sort of conversation about what we are, why, how we got here. All these things are good questions, and they should be something the human race talks about. But the context in which he frames this is just so wrong, in my opinion. So he thinks that atheism is some sort of unfathomable notion, like you would be anti-fantasies, anti-fables, anti-wrong stories describing reality, right? Stories that include supernatural mumbo-jumbo for which there is no evidence. Now, if you have a story for which there's mumbo-jumbo and you have evidence, well, I'll listen to it, but show me the evidence. Show me the money evidence. And you're not going to do that. You're just going to say, well, see, it exists. Human beings do it, so therefore it must be something intrinsic. It must be floating around in space that we must have a God notion. No, we mustn't. Okay, it can be explained as a psychological phenomenon imposed by a circumstance and nothing more. So it's like if on planet, let's just say Saturn, there's a driplet of some chemical, and it's usually clear like water, a little crystal clear driplet. And because of a unique circumstance of, some sort of magnetic field plus a little bit of lightning and a little bit of something else, the chemistry inside of that little droplet turns the droplet black. Okay? Kind of like carbon being turned into a diamond. Now, it's not some sort of bizarre, strange phenomenon. It's not magic. It's not any of that stuff. It's just chemistry. And it's just chemistry that produced us, okay, through a phenomenon called reproduction, which is a very strange mechanism of chemistry. A very strange piece of chemistry does a very strange thing, unusual. Okay, that's what strange is. Strange, and it's different. It isn't just turning black anymore. It's in 4 billion years turning into one of these things. That's what it led to. Okay, but again, through what somebody could argue are a ton of circumstances that if you ran the experiment over and over, changing just little nuances of the environmental circumstances, it wouldn't have happened. It required a lot of special, big, giant storms. Lowest recorded barometric pressure in history in New Jersey, like the last storm, right? So it's a unique storm. Never happened in recorded human history. So, come on. That's all it is. It's chemistry. So anyway, let's play some of this crap over there.
That religious people hang their faith and their beliefs in some form of needing evolution to be false in order for them to be okay with themselves, well, they're doomed, okay? I don't think that you have to pit your religious beliefs in contrast to evolutionary beliefs, but I think the question for the person who wants us to jump on board with...
Well, I mean, that in itself doesn't make much sense. So just to annihilate the core substance of the religion, which is the existence of a God, and just accept the rest of the God talk. So, I mean, if God is a creation, a figment of human imagination, and the edicts of the God are a figment of human imagination, 2,000-year-old edicts, all you're basically saying is, destroy the obviously laughable clown shoes. Take the clown shoes off and the little rubber nose off. Keep the silly hat. Keep the oversized suit. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you keep the edicts of 2,000-year-old morality? Why would you do that? That would be stupid. Should we keep the religious bigotry against homosexuals? Let's get rid of the God, but keep the bigotry. Would that make any sense? Let's get rid of the God, but let's keep the food rituals. I mean, come on. It's all garbage. There's a little tiny bit of logic in 10,000 words or whatever the Bible is. There's a few little good statements like do unto others as if others do unto you. Little bits of logic. I mean, it's just purely a logical statement, a piece of math, essentially. I mean, come on.
Evolutionary theory, which that may be fine. The question they still need to answer, or the one that they're going to need to have responses for, are what exactly is it that we're to do with this kind of self-understanding?
Okay, understanding in the context of evolution he's talking about now. So we have this self-understanding that we evolved. Well, the point is you have to do, what you have to do with it is take it seriously. Okay, if you're going to believe in evolution, if you're going to concede the reality of evolution, yeah, it basically blows up the God theory. It blows up any kind of contrivances attached to that. So blow it all up and start from scratch and realize what we are. We're chemical machines, okay, that have been built over 4 billion years, and we've been tested in what can be called, quite accurately, a gladiator war, where the machines went into the battle, and if you won, your DNA replicated, you died, and your prodigy moved on. And that's all it was a war. And as time evolved, that war became more complex. As the organisms evolve, they get more and more elaborate tools. So we have all these elaborate individual tools. And then it became gang warfare, essentially. Then you become gangs of lions, or gangs of this, or gangs of that, and families of this, and tribes of that. And then the tribe's genetics essentially starts evolving you. What's called DNA success isn't necessarily what you have, it's what your clan is capable of producing. How many ants you can sacrifice, right? The queen has a whole tribe, okay? It's her DNA that's evolving, and she disposes of all these drones that get used up and sucked up to get her DNA into the future. That happens in cultures. Cultures use up the poor and the peasants, and they use up their value, work them to death in the coal mines, destroy them, annihilate them entirely, to migrate their DNA code forward. And in a sense, their privilege code can be very weak code. It's it's incapable of doing any of these things. It's disposed of other people to do. So it's a fake. It's like the cuckoo bird laying the eggs in the other bird's nest. There's all kinds of DNA cheats that start evolving when you start getting further and further. As evolution starts aging, it gets very, very, very creepy. And eventually you get to a point where your DNA is successful because you happen to go to a new continent, kill the local residents, and you find oil. Okay, you find gold, you find some sort of mineral, and all of a sudden now your DNA code will be successful because you happen to find a geology that makes you powerful in the new system, in the new order of gladiator warring. What makes a good sword now is oil, okay, steel, So no, it's a preposterously stupid game we're playing, and our what has defined success has very little to do with any legitimate value. We understand how Mohammed and Jesus Christ have dominated the world. They've dominated it through violence. Okay, Jesus Christ would not exist as a concept if it wasn't for the Crusades, if it wasn't for brutal warfare, where the rest of the world was basically told, do you believe in this book? And if you said the wrong answer, they cut your fucking head off. That's what these loving Christians did. So let's not talk about some kind of real contest. Let's not talk about the idea that any of this has any legitimacy. It's all circumstantial, mufti-pufti, roll dicey bullshit that has decided the fate of the human race. And for you almost, in your stoic manner, keep glorifying these mechanisms as if they've led to us, this wonderful moment where we've reached this pinnacle of something, and we reached it on the backs of people. Okay, religion created an environment where people were mind controlled, not liberated. You talk like they were liberated by religion. They weren't liberated by religion. Religion made it possible to keep them huddled masses of poor, dirty, stinking, miserable people who got used up, who died, barely out of their 20s. And it gave them a lie. The lie was imposed. They lived the lie. They reproduced for the lie. If somebody told them the truth of their existence, they probably wouldn't have sentenced their children to live in the world as it was. So come on, this idea of the promised land and this promise that kept being sold to people. You know, Moses takes them across the Reed Sea to the Dead Lands, to eat bugs, and that's the promised land. It's always been a lie, and it was a lie that worked on dumb people. It kept the ignorant stupid, and it kept them usable. And that's all that's happened here in the evolution of the grand religious theology. It's feudology, it's failology. It's been a disgraceful impediment to human intelligence, human reality.
Okay? See, I think some people see it as a competing story. So some people will say, look, if we're not made in the image of God and made for this kind of purpose of serving Him, loving Him, and everything's going to work out in the end when the judgment comes, if that's not true, if instead evolution is true, and then they start to fit it into all of this narrative, well, I think it's wonderful if we move toward death acceptance, if we move toward humans are not some superior place in a in a natural hierarchy that was, made by God or something like that. But we could say that each organism retains a kind of a niche for which it was well adapted or...
I see again, so that's the lie. A niche to which it was well adapted. No, a circumstance to which it was capable of exploiting everything else from. I mean, let's just call it what it is, okay? There's exploitation all over the place. To talk about this adaptation niches and this balance crap is just a lie, okay? There's winners and losers in disgracefully uneven proportions on this planet. To sit there and glorify the mechanism of gladiator war, okay, fight for no good reason, kill 10 of your kind, or maybe 500 of the other sentient creatures, fry them up in your pots and cook them, make a copy of yourself and die. And we should accept that as a brilliant idea. Let's do some more of that. That's just swell. Why? Because nature's doing it, because it's a driplet of chemical turning from clear to black. We should just keep doing it because it did it once. We got to just keep it doing. We got to keep doing it for the sake of the black driplet. I mean, sorry, no sale. You don't keep doing something just because it's there. I mean, that's just freaking dumb. All right, let's move on to 9 minutes and such, because he says some more crap that's just so crappy. I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but I mean, this is crap. I'm sorry, Professor, this is crap. I mean, evolution is more than just, replacing God with the God of a DNA molecule, of the God of the way it's always been. Evolution is a story, and it's not a good story. It's a story of a forced march. 4 billion years of little machines struggling to trip the other guy, to fuck the other guy over, to eat the other guy's guts. I mean, there's organisms all over this planet right now whose only mission is to dig a hole inside of you and to eat your fucking brains. I mean, don't talk to me about how balanced and brilliant and purposeful and nichey all that crap is. That's not a legitimate niche. Okay? That's an act of violence.
Why some people cling to their religious beliefs, or are there other kinds of religious beliefs that aren't caught in the dogma? That, I guess...
Yeah, exactly. How exactly do you do that? How exactly do you come up with a religion that isn't caught up in the dogma? You're going to need the dogma, because the dogma is the lie that creates the origins of your mystical purpose. There obviously isn't any sensible, rational, logical reason to perpetuate gladiator war. So unless you can paint some other pretty smiley face on, unless you can leave the clown suit on, the oversized clothes and the silly hat and the funny hair, and maybe even the squeezy honky horn, unless you get to keep some of the stupid trappings of lie, All right, there's no way you can make this the naked truth of evolution into a good story. It's a negative story, decidedly negative.
Most Christians would see as atheism. Fair enough. I think any organized religion would probably see most of the views that I espouse to be a kind of atheism. I don't care what people call it. I don't see it as atheism. I don't think atheism makes any sense. It just doesn't make sense to me. What is all of this?
I mean, to talk this way, like I say, what is all this? Being realistic, trying to be fair to the truth. What is all this? Well, what is this preposterous idea that you would actually analyze the natural system and say, does it really have any mechanisms built into it that are going to produce things like justice and fairness and a good game? Or is it really just taking advantage of creating deprivation in things, addiction, need, dependency, and throwing them out into a world to go steal those things, the star energy, from the other things that possess it? And for what glory? To get a DNA molecule, a little piece of code that's held inside of me into the future. I mean, how preposterous.
I mean, there had to be a creator. The creator doesn't make any sense to me. The fact of intelligence does, and somehow there seems to...
The fact of intelligence does, right. Okay, intelligence by what definition? All right, lots of organisms are intelligent. Right now, a blackbird can figure out how to get a worm out of a thing using a little bent piece of stick and pull the worm out. Chimpanzees can do all kinds of little things like that. Lots of things have a kind of reasoning intelligence where they can figure out how to manipulate the environment to make something happen. I'd say even a dog knows how to push leaves over its poo with its nose. So we all know lots of organisms are intelligent. The question is are you informed and educated, and does your intelligence understand enough of the math you're trying to do? Do you understand enough of the formulas that you need to apply? Do you understand enough of the variables to do the math? The fact that we can do 1 + 1 = 2 does not make us a mathematician. So at some point you have to prove your intelligence. You can't just say I'm intelligent because I can add 1 + 1 and get 2. You have to do better than that. This word doesn't really mean anything. And if you mean real intelligence, what does that mean? Does that mean the intelligence to understand that you're a psychology? Okay, that you're an emotional animal first at the core? That you do basically have lizard, ape, and logic? A higher organism. Well, you call it human, but it's almost a disgrace to the word because humans have insulted intelligence so profoundly. There's nothing intelligent about dropping nuclear bombs on each other, is there? And we've done that.
Be a kind of intelligence here, and the question would be, why are there notions of the gods? Now, someone could
see again. So he asks these questions as if they are challenging, hard questions to answer. We can see it in cultural evolution. All right, there's nothing complicated about this. Ignorant primates got language. They started writing the truth down. They started telling each other what they've learned through experience and life experience. And they grew and built that knowledge base. Okay, and through that process, they were stuck in this circumstance of saying, what are we? What are we doing here? How did we get here? And in an ignorant environment, thunder, lightning, storms, crop damage, children dying before their eyes of unknown reasons and causes, bad gas, bad ethers, all kinds of bizarre speculations. Of course they became superstitious. Of course they started thinking they were doing something wrong and something was deciding to harm them. It's the logical thing to do, is to draw those conclusions in ignorance.
Well, people just invented it. Okay, why did they invent it? From where came this fantasy? See, those are the questions I'm interested in.
Yeah, well, you've gotten answers to those questions, and you just ignore those answers, so you don't respond to those. How is it wrong to say those are the ignorant deductions that children make up silly reasons for stuff happening? Okay, something happens, and they say the boogeyman did it, or, Barney the dinosaur. They come up with some kind of crap, and we know that's what we do. We come up with some kind of crap and ignorance. All right, well, we're not ignorant anymore. We're pretty well informed now. We've dissected the world with telescopes and microscopes and oscilloscopes and spinorositors and all kinds of bullshit. And we don't have the excuse anymore to make up boogeymen and gremlins and hobgoblins.
You might say, well, it was superstition. Okay, why are people superstitious? What was the survival value of superstition?
Well, okay, so you want to talk about the survival value of religion, that's different, okay? There are superstitions people didn't survive, okay, very well. There's not too many, purebred voodooers. There's not too many purebred witch doctors left. But what did survive is religions, okay, because they did mind control people. So there was no survival value to it, beyond the sense that it allowed you to create people who would be in service to a god because they were afraid. They were afraid they were sinners. They were afraid they were where they were in the world because of something they did wrong. And so they were controllable. They were sheeple, as the Bible metaphors. They were sheep to the ambitions of individuals, and those individuals decided who lived and who died.
Superstition. I guess I would want to say that, yes, it was memory and imagination and symbolic representation.
Yeah, whatever. It was exploitation, it was ignorance, it was duplicity, okay? People were duped into existing for a false purpose, living for a false promise of a false heaven, and running from the false threat of an evil hell. Something worse than their bad condition. Oh yeah, if you think it's bad now, I can make it even worse for you. So you play along, you do as you're told. So come on. We know what we are now. All right, we're just gladiators in the arena, in the war arena. Okay, where things beat the crap out of each other. Things that aren't too distantly related to each other. Exploit and destroy each other. So one can raise its arm for a mere moment in history, say, I win, and then be ceremoniously destroyed itself. They all lose. They all get thrown off the board. They all get pushed off the cliff. All right? Every single one of them. No king was ever immune to choking to death. And this is the lie of our lives. This is the crude imbecility of what we're caught up in, and it ought to give us a hell of a lot of goddamn pause before we just keep marching into a future that we can't, when we see how out of control it has been, and how out of control we are. Remember, we dropped a nuclear bomb, not because we had to, but because we said it's convenient.
As those congealed together, they gave a certain organism an experienced sense of freedom, a kind of liberated capacity to move through space and time.
Okay. So again, this is just the lie, okay? It's a tiny percentage of the human race doing this moving through space and time crap. Most of them were dirty-faced. They were getting beaten up in the fields or beaten up underground or beaten up on the streets. Beaten up in child labor camps just get real, all right? The attrition rate through human history has been fucking-seen, all right? For every man who went west, young man, what do you think the attrition rate was? How many successfully played the go west game in the beginning, right? 1 in 10, got 5 years out of it? Come on. This is just such a lie. This stoic crap that somehow the human race is on some magical, mystical wonder ride. The human race has been, for the 10,000 years of civilization building, dirty-faced, smelly-bodied, and short-lived.
Anticipate eventual happenings and to have increasing amounts of recollection and remorse over past doings, and all of that became a kind of theater that was meaningful by imagining that the gods were witnessing, that the gods were watching.
Now, I don't even know how that has any relevance to anything anyway. This imagining that the gods are watching, I don't really even think that had much to do with it. All right, it was either greed, a gluttony, wanting for the paradise, or it was fear of the punishment. It's the carrot or the stick. I mean, to call the thing in between the carrot and the stick somehow a free agent, and somehow a brilliant, free, spiritual, blah, 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 blah. No. We can see the human race chasing carrots, and we can see the human race running from sticks. Just, that's all there is here.
I can imagine, that there would have never emerged a notion of the gods. Like, people would just be, I guess, like animals, just smarter than them. But
yeah, how would that be possible? You think if animals were smarter, they wouldn't ask questions like, what the hell am I doing here? And why do I have a crocodile, for example? If it acquired intelligence first, you don't think it would ponder, man, this really sucks. I mean, you mean I sneak up on these little animals? I grab them with these horrible teeth, and I grab them into the water, and I spin them around and drown them and rip their skin off? Oh my God, my life sucks. You don't think that's what they would do if they were intelligent? You think their intelligence would just be used to glorify crocodile? Let's make crocodile statues, and let's make giant crocodile jaws that actually go on the shore and bring the stuff to us so we don't even have to wait for it to come to the water hole. Ha ha ha! You think that's what they would do with their fucking intelligence, is just become bigger and badder monsters? Come on.
they're not. Somehow, with the notion of the superior brain, the larger nervous system,
yeah, whatever. See, this is all the part of the new religion of science. You know, this big, giant. It's not that much bigger, the brain. Okay, it's not doing anything that much difference. All we have is language. That's the difference. Okay, it's the Helen Keller scenario. Without the language, we're animals. With the language, we can do something better. All right. And to sit there and create factory farms out of all the other sentient creatures just because they can't do the fucking math that we can do. Because they can't do trigonometry, let's boil them in a fucking pot. Let's torture them. Let's inject them with fucking cancer. And you're going to tell me about how elegant and beautiful and wonderful your stoic human intelligence is. Fuck you, cunt.